Lesson 52. Mud is mud. We'll talk about a bottle of mud and a practical joke in this text. Now first, listen and then answer this question. Why did Harry decide to give up his little game? Harry 为什么决定放弃他的小小的恶作剧？
My cousin Harry keeps a large, curiously shaped bottle on permanent display in his study. Despite the fact that the bottle is tinted a delicate shade of green, an observant visitor would soon notice that it is filled with what looks like a thick, greyish substance. If you were to ask Harry what was in the bottle, he would tell you that it contained perfumed mud. If you expressed doubt or surprise, he would immediately invite you to smell it, and then to rub some into your skin. The brief experiment would dispel any further doubts you might have. The bottle really does contain perfumed mud. How Harry came into possession of this outlandish stuff makes an interesting story, which he is fond of relating. Furthermore, the acquisition of this bottle cured him of a bad habit he had been developing for years. Harry used to consider it a great joke to go into expensive cosmetic shops and make outrageous requests for goods that do not exist. He would invent fanciful names on the spot. On entering a shop, he would ask for a new perfume called Scented Shadow, or for insoluble bath cubes. If a shop assistant told him she had not heard of it, he would pretend to be considerably put out. He loved to be told that one of his imaginary products was temporarily out of stock, and he would faithfully promise to call again at some future date. But of course, he never did. How Harry managed to keep a straight face during these performances is quite beyond me. Harry does not need to be prompted to explain how he bought his precious bottle of mud. One day, he went to an exclusive shop in London and asked for Myrolite. The shop assistant looked puzzled, and Harry repeated the word, slowly stressing each syllable. When the woman shook her head in bewilderment, Harry went on to explain that Myrolite was a hard, amber-like substance which could be used to remove freckles. This explanation evidently conveyed something to the woman, who searched shelf after shelf. She produced all sorts of weird concoctions, but none of them met with Harry's requirements. When Harry put on his act of being mildly annoyed, the assistant promised to order some for him. Intoxicated by his success, Harry then asked for perfumed mud. He expected the assistant to look at him in blank astonishment. However, it was his turn to be surprised, for the woman's eyes immediately lit up, and she fetched several bottles which she placed on the counter for Harry to inspect. For once, Harry had to admit defeat. He picked up what seemed to be the smallest bottle and discreetly asked the price. He was glad to get away with a mere £20, and he beat a hasty retreat, clutching the precious bottle under his arm. From then on, Harry decided that this little game he had invented might prove to be expensive. The curious bottle, which now adorns the bookcase in his study, was his first and last purchase of rare cosmetics.
So why did Harry decide to give up his little game? Well, because he thought it might prove to be too expensive. What is Harry's little game, or practical joke? He loved to make fool of the assistants of expensive cosmetic shops by asking for non-existent cosmetics. How did he give up then? The text tells us in the last paragraph, just for once, when he asked for perfumed mud, the shop indeed had it. Though it was not expensive, this incident cured him of the bad habit because he thought it might cost too much. The end of the text tells us that the bottle is being displayed on the bookcase in his study. We knew that already from the very first paragraph. Harry would invite everybody to try to prove that mud is mud, just as the title goes. Right, we'll first look at some language points in the text. The bottle is tinted a delicate shade of green. Delicate means not strong in color or in smell. Let's look at more examples. We chose a delicate color for our bedroom curtains. 我们为卧室的窗帘选了一种淡颜色。The wine has a delicate fruity flavor. So here delicate means not strong in smell. 有一种淡淡的水果香味儿。A delicate shade of green. Shade here means a degree of green. Look at these examples. What shade of lipstick do you use? Here shade means what degree of color of lipstick do you choose? Everything is black or white for him. There are no shades of gray. Means everything is an extreme for him. 事物对他来讲非黑即白，没有中间地带。No shades of gray is a fixed saying in English. There are several shades of meaning in that sentence, which means there are several levels of meaning in the sentence. This brief experiment would dispel any further doubts you might have. Dispel means remove. We often use dispel with these objects. Dispel doubts, dispel fears, or dispel false ideas. Look at this example. His speech has dispelled a few rumors that have been spreading recently. How Harry came into the possession of this outlandish stuff. Come into the possession of something means possess something, but it's a formal way of putting it. For example, he came into possession of a great deal of property when his father died. Simply means he possessed a great deal of property. This outlandish stuff. Outlandish means strange or bizarre, but it's a disapproving word, meaning too strange to accept. For example, we can describe a hairstyle or a dress as outlandish. This stuff makes an interesting story, which she is fond of relating. Make here means have the characteristics of an interesting story. Look at more examples. It's a novel that would make a great film, which means this novel can be made into a great film. I don't think he will ever make a good doctor, which means he doesn't possess such qualities to become a good doctor. The acquisition of this bottle. Acquisition is the noun. Its verbal form is acquire. So acquisition means the thing you have bought. For example, the painting is the National Gallery's latest acquisition. 这幅画是国家美术馆的最新购品。The acquisition of this bottle cured him of this bad habit. Cure somebody of some habit or a certain kind of attitude means make somebody stop having that habit or attitude. We know that the basic meaning of cure is to cure somebody of a certain kind of disease. For example, at that time, the doctors couldn't cure people of TB. 那个时候，医生无法治愈肺结核。Even drinking could not cure him of his anxieties. Here, cure of means the same as the one used in the text, which is, drinking could not relieve him of his anxieties. He would invent fanciful names on the spot. Fanciful here means imaginary and unusual names. For example, a fanciful story is an unreal story or a fictitious story, 想象的故事. A fanciful design means an unusual design. He would invent names on the spot. On the spot means there and then, 当场. Let's look at more examples. She was reporting the accident on the spot, which means she was making a live report, 在做现场报道. He was caught without a ticket and was fined on the spot. He was fined there and then, 当场被罚款. His imaginary products. Imaginary means not existing in reality, something imagined. We know that imaginative and imaginable are also adjectives of imagine. What is the difference among the three adjectives? Let's look at these examples. All the characters in the book are imaginary, which means all the characters do not exist in reality. They are fictitious. 想象的,虚构的. The child is quite imaginative. Imaginative means good at imagination. 富有想象力的. Our school offers courses in every imaginable subject. Every subject that can be imagined. 可以想象到的. Out of stock means not being sold. 没有存货了. 有货就是 in stock. For example, the new edition of the dictionary is in stock in major bookshops, or is out of stock in major bookshops. 新版的字典在主要的书店中有货或者没有货. He would faithfully promise to call again. Faithfully here means firmly. Let's look at one more example. He faithfully promised that he would never tell anybody about it, which means he firmly promised that he wouldn't do that. Faithfully is often used to go together with these verbs. Let's look at these examples. She always faithfully follows her boss's instructions. Loyally follows everything his boss says. He has served the family faithfully for 30 years. He has served the family loyally for 30 years. He would faithfully promise to call again. Call here means to make a visit again. Let's look at these examples. The postman called when we were out. The postman came when we were out. I called on my cousin yesterday evening. I made a visit to my cousin's place. Can you call at the grocery on your way home? Can you go to the grocery to do shopping? How Harry managed to keep a straight face. Keep a straight face means pretend to be serious or look serious. We can also use straight-faced as an adjective, meaning serious-looking. For example, he was so straight-faced when he told the story that I just presumed it was true. He looked so serious. Harry does not need to be prompted to explain how he bought this. Be prompted means be evoked. So here the sentence actually means you don't need to ask Harry. He would volunteer to tell you about this. Let's look at more examples of prompt. The recent incident prompted him to call a meeting of the staff. The recent incident caused him to call a meeting. Seeing the children in the park prompted thoughts of his own sons, which means seeing the children in the park made him think of his own sons. Yes, he prompted the student. Prompted here means he tried to give some clue to the student. 提醒. It's forbidden to prompt a witness in court. 法庭上不能提示证人. He went to an exclusive shop. Exclusive here means accessible to only rich people. We can often use exclusive in this sense to describe a restaurant or a hotel. This explanation evidently conveyed something. Convey something means express meaning. Let's look at these examples. I want to convey my apologies to all of you. I want to express my apologies. He tried to convey in his speech how grateful he was for our help, which is to express gratitude. His tone conveyed a sense of urgency. Notice that here convey means indicated, not exactly the same as the usage in the former two sentences. She produced all sorts of weird concoctions. Produce here means to bring out, especially to bring out in order to show to somebody. For example, quite unexpectedly, he produced a beautifully wrapped present from his bag. None of them met with Harry's requirements. Meet with somebody's requirements means to satisfy the requirements. For example, the manufacturer is unable to meet with the market demand. 厂家无法满足市场需求. The senator's suggestion met with widespread opposition. So meet with can also be used to express, get certain kind of reaction. 他的建议遇到了广泛的反对. When Harry put on his act of being mildly annoyed, this is actually a repetition of another sentence in the text. He would pretend to be considerably put out, because put out also means to be annoyed. Now coming back to put on. Put on, the basic meaning is to perform. For example, they are putting on a new play or a new concert. So from that basic meaning, put on can mean pretend. For example, why are you putting on that silly face or that silly expression? Being mildly annoyed. Mildly here means slightly. Give you one more example. I'm mildly surprised to see him again so soon. Intoxicated by his success. Intoxicated here means carried away by his success, overjoyed by his success. The basic meaning of intoxicated is being drunk. For example, she was arrested for driving while intoxicated. 她因酒后驾车被捕. The leaders can become intoxicated with their own power. This intoxicated means the same as the textual one. 领导者可能会陶醉于自己的权力. Look at him in blank astonishment. Blank here means not understanding. For example, my questions were met with blank stares. They stared at me, showing that they didn't understand. Most of the time, she just had a blank expression. Blank here means not interested. For once, Harry had to admit defeat. For once means quite unusually. For example, For once, he offered to buy me a drink, which indicates that usually he didn't pay. Just for once, she's being nice to me, again indicating that usually she's not nice to me. Harry had to admit defeat. Admit defeat is a fixed expression, 认输. For example, I thought I could mend my broken radio myself, but soon I had to admit defeat. I couldn't do that. He picked up what seemed to be the smallest bottle and discreetly asked the price. Discreetly means cautiously. Look at one more example. He discreetly whispered to me that the painting was not genuine. He was glad to get away with a mere £20. Get away with something means succeed in avoiding the risk or danger or punishment. I don't know how they managed to get away with not paying tax at all. I don't know how they managed to avoid paying tax. He beat a hasty retreat. Beat a retreat means walk away quickly from danger or embarrassment. For example, it started to rain, so we beat a hasty retreat into the bar. 我们赶快逃到酒吧里。A hasty retreat. Hasty can mean quick or rash. For example, a hasty dinner, 匆匆忙忙的晚饭. A hasty decision or conclusion means not carefully considered, 草率的决定或者结论. I have mentioned before that the passive voice in English sometimes can express objectivity, but sometimes it can also indicate other meanings. Let's look at two examples in this text. He loved to be told that one of his imaginary products was temporarily out of stock. So he loved to be told. Be told emphasizes how much Harry enjoyed the answers of the shop assistants. In other words, how he enjoyed making fool of the shop assistants. So the passive voice, be prompted, tells us how anxious Harry has been in telling us this story. I wonder how you find this story and Harry. No matter how we choose to describe Harry's behavior, whether we call it a practical joke, a small trick, a bad habit, or an outrageous hobby, Harry's behavior first strikes us as quite funny. We will not probably start with a moral judgment. I guess it's because we all need some different things to add color to our dull daily routines. Jokes or tricks or some weird habits can usually add color to our dull daily routines. Well, of course, these habits or these tricks should be harmless to other people, and they shouldn't be too expensive, as in Harry's case. And the last thing you want is to become the victim of your own trick, as Harry did. All right, so much on this story. I'll see you next time.